New York. He and I are good friends. When Pastor Joseph Kim was ordained last year, wasn't it last May 2018? I was with his family in Canada, and then he came to our church and leading this English worship service. So I'm very happy, and we are lucky to have him here. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I see here 장로님, 권사님, 집사님. It's exciting to see some of you are serving this community so long, many years, faithfully. So I'm thankful to you. I praise God because of you. So I am excited to be here. Is the PowerPoint ready, or is it possible to down? On the side? Okay, good. My wife, Sarah and I are here today, and today we have a little bit different format. I will speak 1/3 of the time, and then Sarah will speak 2/3 of the time. I will talk about the biblical principle here, and then she'll talk about how to apply that to our real life. So I think she can do it, but since I am the husband and I'm the pastor, so I will speak first, and so she will talk. That's how our Reverend Hannah Kim came in order. You speak first, and your wife will speak second. So I said, okay, sir. Yeah. So I'm happy to hear that. We have been, I finished my work in Korea, and then I went to the USA year 2017, and then I've been teaching in a seminary in North Carolina. It's a very well-known seminary, Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. Pastor Reverend Billy Graham, you know Billy Graham, established that seminary in 1969. It's a well-known seminary. So I teach there, and then also I excavate in Ethiopia, the land of Queen of Sheba, since year 2012. I just came back from Ethiopia, and I also work in Israel to teach Bible and biblical geography, archaeology, history, etc. So if you want to know the Bible, in the place of Bible, in the land of the Bible, you can go with me and you can study in Israel. So I've been very busy going around, and then I come to Korea to do something. So I live 4 countries at the same time: Korea, USA, Ethiopia, and Israel. I am working in all 8 continents. I was born in Asia. I'm working in Africa. I'm teaching in America. So AAA. I get all A's. Anyway, so today, in the world there are so many people who need to know the Bible, need to know the essence of the gospel. The gospel is good news, but what is it? What is the gospel? Here we have flowers. When you see the flowers, what's your first word to describe the
Beautiful.
flower? Beautiful. Why is it beautiful?
God made.
Yeah, God made, but how? What kind of, is it? I think the flower is beautiful because it's simple. It's very simple. It's just standing like this. It's not doing anything. It's not dancing. The flower is not dancing. The flower does not say, I'm going somewhere. Where are you going? I'm going out to make money. No, flower is just sitting there for you to look at it. It's so simple, that's why it's beautiful. I have a grandchild now, last Christmas time, and this baby is very, I'm sorry about this. The baby is so beautiful. Why? The baby cannot talk well. The baby does not go out to do something. The baby does not make money. Baby does not say hi to me. Baby just lying around like that. But baby is so beautiful. Why? It's simple. The baby is simple. Just when he looks at me, he just smiles like that. The gospel is beautiful. Why? The gospel is so simple. I'm going to tell you the simpleness of the Bible, of the gospel. Somebody came to Jesus and said, Jesus, can you summarize the entire Bible into 2 sentences? You see, the Bible, there are so many things inside, but what is the essence of this? It's so complicated. And at that time, the New Testament was not written yet. They had only Old Testament. Jesus said, number 1, you serve your God with what? With all your soul, all your heart, and all your power, all your might. So serve your God. Number 2, love your neighbor just like yourself. You love yourself, don't you? Maybe not. No one answers. You love yourself, don't you?
Yes. Yes.
If you go to an eye shop, the glass shop, and you try to choose the best one. Why? Because you want to look nice. Because you love yourself. But you don't care if someone else is wearing black eyeglasses or square eyeglasses or big one or small one. You don't care. Why? Because you don't love that person as much as you love yourself. But Bible, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. 2 sentences. It's simple. The entire Bible, 66 books, is summarized into 2 sentences. 1, love your God. 2, love your neighbor. How can you do that? Let's see slide number 1. Can you see that? I cannot see it very well. The answer is in the book, in the Old Testament, Micah. Micah is not my car. Micah. It's in the Micah or Micah. Micah chapter 6, verse 8 says, God wants from you 3 things. Justice and mercy. And what else? Humbleness in front of your God. The answer is in this text. Micah chapter 6 verse 8 is the answer to Mark chapter 12, 30 and 31. Let's look at it. Love your God. How? How? What does it say there? Does it say love your God? Love your God. How? How? What does it say? Love your God. How do you love God? The answer is on the right side. You cannot see it. You can reduce it a little bit and then show it. By humbling yourself in front of your God. That's how you love your God. You see, when my son comes to me, my son now, you know Jason. You remember Jason, this small guy? Now he's tall. Power. He's maybe more powerful than Joseph Kim. He's tall. And he can hold up this weight. But when he comes to me, he behaves like a child. Hi, Daddy. And he does not use his power on me. He loves me. He humbles himself in front of me. That's the relationship between the father and son has. It's very simple. When you come to your God, you don't argue with him. You don't give millions of excuses why you cannot follow his words. You just say, yes, Daddy, I'll do it. That humbleness, 겸손 in front of God, that's how you love God. Number 2, next slide. How do you love your neighbor like yourself? Jesus said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Then think about it. What do you want from others? Justice. Justice. When I work somewhere, I want justice. I want to be treated equal to others. If I get paid X number of dollars, I want to have equal treatment. If he gets $10,000 and then somebody gives him only $7,000 because I'm a yellow man, you know, it's terrible. He gets 1 million won, but I get only 500,000 won because I'm a woman. Is it fair? It's not fair. Justice means fairness. Fairness. To love your neighbor means you be fair to them. Be fair. And then Micah 6:8 says, there's something else you need to do. Be kind to your neighbor. Be kind. Be kind. Merciful. Be kind is in Hebrew. Today worship service, Hana 목사님 talks about Hebrew words. I get excited because I know Hebrew. So Hebrew word says, be merciful. Be merciful to your neighbor. Your neighbor can do all kinds of wrong things as long as it's not, willful and it's not destructive. It's something that has a, not bad intention, and you can be merciful. Even if he is doing something wrong, you can be merciful. You can be merciful to your neighbor. Your neighbor means in your families. Today, these principles, how to serve God, how to be nice to your neighbors, can be applied to our life. That will be taught by Mrs. Ko. When I was in charge of English worship service, I asked her so many times to speak here. She said, "No, I'm not a pastor. I'm not going to talk." But somehow, now she wants to talk all by herself. I didn't twist her arm, but she wants to talk. So I'm sure she has something to share with you. Sarah.
Maybe I did twist his arm a little. Okay, the next slide, please. There are two words that you'll need to know in English today. One of them is orphan. You know what that is, koadu. And the other word is adoption, 입양, 하다. If I say the word orphan, what's the first thing you think of? If you hear the word koa or orphan, what is your thought? What words do you think of? What image do you have? Next. Of course, it's someone with no parents. You think, okay, they don't have a mother, they don't have a father. But what image do you have, or what feeling do you have about orphans? Next. Sometimes I hear people say the word lazy. Orphans are just lazy. Or, next, they can't be trusted. Well, you must have good eyesight. I can't see that very well, but you can. They can't be trusted. Momido. Many people tell me that. I can't trust orphans. Or, next slide, they have bad manners. They don't behave like good Koreans. They don't act right. And next, some people even say, they're okay, but I don't want my children to play with orphans, and I won't let my daughter marry an orphan. Maybe some of you feel the same way about orphans. Sadly, I've also heard, not at Myungsung, but at other churches, people say, I don't want orphans to come to my church. I know many cases of that. Thankfully, that's not the case here. But I'd like to tell you the story of two orphan girls. Okay, two orphan girls. The first girl was an orphan. She never knew who her mother or father were. She was always sad. Other kids made fun of her. 학교에서 왕따 많이 받았어요. They made fun of her when they knew she was an orphan. When she became an adult, no one wanted to hire her at work. She couldn't get a job. So she lied on her application. She made up a family about mother and father and family, but after she got the job, the boss found out it was a lie, and he fired her. Nagara, he told her. She desperately wanted to be loved, but she looked for love in all the wrong places. She became pregnant twice. She had an abortion. She had a miscarriage. And the next slide. She struggled with depression, and she tried to commit suicide. Someone called 119, and she got to the hospital, so she survived. Now she's living in a shelter. She struggles with depression, 우울증. She feels unwanted, alone, and afraid. That's the story of one orphan girl. Now I'm going to tell you the story of a second orphan girl. When she was a young girl, she was adopted. The man who became her father had a big house. Not yet on the slide. He loved children. He had already adopted other children. At first, she was very careful and tried to follow the rules in the house so she wouldn't get in trouble, and so he would love her more. But eventually she realized that her new dad would always love her, just as much as he loved her older brother. He reminded her that he would always love her, and that when he adopted her, she became his real child and a part of his family. Unlike the first girl that you see here, she grew up knowing that she was loved and valued, and that if she ever needed help, her father would support her and take care of her, even if he had to sacrifice to help her. Who was that second girl? Who do you think the second girl is? That's me. Now you can do the next slide. Because according to the Bible, we were all orphans. If you're a Christian today, you have a father who has adopted you into his family. And that was his plan even before the beginning of the world. Next. Yeah, we were all orphans. You were an orphan too, and I was an orphan too. Not just our kids, Jason and Susie. Next. In Ephesians, I don't know, you can zoom in on the Korean side. It says, God chose us before the foundation of the world, and in love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship. Now, I know I don't read Korean that well, but I think in Korean the word adoption actually is missing. I don't think that's in the Korean translation, but in the original it actually says that God adopted us. Next slide. In fact, in Galatians, it tells us that adoption is the reason Jesus came to earth. A few weeks ago, I was talking to Hana Moksanim, and I said, Moksanim, why do you think Jesus came to earth? And it was a trick question. I knew the answer, and I knew what he would say. He said, well, of course, Jesus came to save us. Of course, that's what you said. He came to save us, but that's not the end result, or not the end reason. Ephesians tells us that when the time had come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, to redeem us, that's save us, but why? So that we might receive adoption. We were sinners in need of a Savior, but we were also orphans in need of a father and a family. God wasn't happy just being our Savior to save us from sin. He wants us to be part of a family and to be our Father. So as Christians, we want to be more like Jesus. We want to be more like our Heavenly Father. So what is God like? In Psalm 10, is that, okay, next slide. Yeah, Psalm 10 says that God is the helper of the fatherless. Next slide. Psalm 68 said he is the father of the fatherless. Next slide. And as Christians, we want to do what he tells us to do. I think, can you see, is that Isaiah? Yes. Isaiah 1 says to learn to do good. We have to learn how to do good. That's hard. It's hard sometimes. We have to actually learn how to do good. Seek justice, as my husband read from Micah. Rebuke the oppressor. Defend the fatherless, the orphans, and plead for the widow. Next, Psalm 82:3. Also, defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice. There it is again. Micah, Psalms, Isaiah. Do justice to the afflicted and the needy. And next, and also James 1:27. 야고보서 1장 27절. I'm sure you all know this one. What are we to do? We're to visit the orphans and widows in their affliction. And the word visit doesn't just mean one time. 한번 가서, that's good. Visit means to come near and to help and provide support in this verse. If we do this, what does the Bible say will be the result? Next. What's the result? Psalm 41 says, "Blessed is he who considers the helpless." I think I work a lot with orphans, and many people tell me, "Oh, the orphans are so blessed because you are helping them." And I say, no, I'm the one who's blessed because I get to help them. Next, Jeremiah says, "He judged the cause of the poor and needy. Then it was well." After they took care of the poor and needy, then it was well. Then God says, "Is not this to know me, declares the Lord?" When we help the poor and needy, that's when we really know God. Next. But who are the poor and needy? Who are the orphans in Korea? I work with young adults, teenagers, and young adults from 3 welfare homes, Poyugon. They're not called Koawon anymore, they're called Poyugons in Korea. And just these 3 homes have a total of 800 kids living in them, closer to 900 now. Next. Over all of, and the homes are these 3, Shinmangwon, Chongun Poyugon, and Kumnamu Mail, in different places around Seoul. Next, all over Korea total, there are about 15,000 kids living in government poyugons. 전국 포유관들 15,000명 있어요. And there are 281 government homes, sponsored homes in Korea. There's probably another 15,000, 15,000명, in private homes, 개인 포유관, or group homes. No one knows exactly because the government doesn't register these numbers. So there's at least 30,000 kids in these homes. There's also another 280,000 teenagers, 28만 명, living on the streets in Korea. 노숙자처럼. 280,000 teenagers living on the streets in Korea. That's more than the adult homeless population in Korea. When a child lives in an orphanage, even their brain matter changes. Everything about them, their personality changes. They have depression, 우울증도 있고, low self-esteem. They don't trust adults. Many things about them change. They have so many problems. Next. A few weeks ago, I read in the Korean newspaper some extremely sad news. Maybe you can zoom in on the left side so they can see the Korean in the middle. In Korea, on average, every day, 13 children are abandoned by their parents. Every day, 하루하루 13명 are abandoned by their parents. That's not mihonmo, that's a different issue. Just abandoned children by their parents every day. There's actually it's 13.6 average, but 13 children every day are abandoned. Next. So what happens to these kids? Every year, about 800, 900 kids will age out of the homes when they graduate from high school or when they turn 18 or when they run away. They will leave the homes. Only 10% of those will live safely. 안전하게 살 수 있는 사람들 그냥 10%만. Only 10% live safely in Korea. I know already one student that I knew committed suicide. No one knew for 3 months. They found him in his apartment 3 months later. No one called, no one visited. This is a common situation. So I was very upset about the situation, and I asked a director, what can we do? 우리는 뭐 할 수 있어요? this is not right in Korea. We have the biggest churches in the world in Korea, and yet these children are dying. What can we do? So I thought, first, okay, apartments, we need housing, we need jobs, we need supplies. Well, we need all these things. And she smiled and she said, yes, that's all very nice. We need those things. But she said, even if you have all of those things, job, sujo and ibul and yo and nengchanggo and a chigap, you have all of these things, still 90% will fail. I said, well, why? What can we do? She said, you really only need one thing. Can you guess? We need one person to care about one child. Just one. If that child has one person, one adult, one responsible adult in their life to care for them, they can make it. But if they have a job and a house and other things are given to them, but they don't have one adult who cares about them, they will still fail. They won't make it. So when I heard that number, I argued with God a little bit, and he said, well, Sarah, you're welcome. You can start something then. You can work. You're part of the church. You do something. And so I started Life Together, and I think this shows some of the things that we do. Because I'm a foreigner, I can teach English. Well, not everyone can walk into a poyugon and say, I want to work, I want to come. Now, you have to have a reason. So since I can teach English, I can go into the homes. We have English camps. I can mentor them. We provide supplies when they graduate. But again, the most important thing is that they know that they're loved. Next. I often ask the students how I can help them, or what is the hardest thing about living in a welfare home? What's the hardest thing that you have to deal with? And the answer I got from a student last year, a Koi Yohaksing, answered this way, and I'll read her. She wrote the answer in Korean, so I'll tell you the answer in Korean. She said, 가족이 없는 게 힘들었고 지금도 가족이 생겼으면 좋겠다. I can't give her a family. So I said, okay, tell me one more thing. What's one more thing that's hard? What can I do to help you? And she said, 두 번째, 가족이 생겼으면 좋겠다. That was number one and number two. She said, 난 어머니 없고 아버지 없고 누가 나를 사랑할 거야? Who will love me? She said. So next, we have a new program that started this year as a homestay, since we're in the United States now. The church in America where we attend wanted to help the Korean children. So they brought 8 kids to the States in February, and we stayed for 2 weeks in 4 homes, and the kids could see Jesus with skin on. Jesus, 하나님 사랑 어떻게 알 수 있어요? They have to see something. They have to see someone love them. So it's Jesus with skin on is what we said they would do. Next. But what we do with Life Together, I think that's what that says, isn't just a program. Programs are good. I don't mean that we shouldn't have programs. But kids are not a project. They're people who want to be loved and need to be loved. Jesus didn't say in the verse that my husband read and that you read, Jesus didn't say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind and strength, and have a ministry with your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say that. Or he didn't say, have a project with your neighbor. He said, love your neighbor. And if you were in the first 예배 this morning with Wal Moksanim, who talked about the Good Samaritan, we understood a little bit more about the story of the Good Samaritan. If one of you, 집사님, 권사님들, have a problem and I can help you, I don't say that, oh, I've got a project today. I'm going to serve 권사님. No, simply, I have a friend, I love my friend, and I'm going to help them. That's the difference, I think, for our kids. They need to know that they are loved, that they're not just a project that we can say, oh, I did that. I loved my neighbor today. Next. I think we can go on to the next one. Next. Okay, there's a village in China, Yangji. In that village, it's a very remote village, 99% of the village is Christian. They're very poor, they don't even have cell phones, which in this world is not very common, especially in China. But as they were reading the Bible a few years ago, they read James 1:27. Pure religion is to take care of the widows and orphans. And they said, oh, then we should do that. So in that village, in that Christian village that has 55 families, those 55 families are fostering 166 children in their homes. They said, we should take care of the orphans. Their homes were small, so they added a room so they could have more children. And the children are all handicapped. 55 families took all of the orphans in their district and brought them into their homes. Next. What if the church in Korea decided to take care of the orphans here? I'm so happy that the church in America wants to help. And there are a lot of foreigners like me who want to help. They invest time, they invest money, but these are Korean kids. These are your kids. I hope to see Korean Christians taking care of Korean orphans. Next. So when you hear the word orphan, I hope you don't think lazy, can't be trusted, bad manners. That is true sometimes. Sometimes they are lazy and have bad manners. But when Jesus adopted me, I wasn't very lovely either. I was an orphan, just like you. So when you hear the word orphan, I hope you think these are precious children made in the image of God, just like you. Children who didn't have a choice. No child says, I want to live in a poyuguan. I want to grow up as an orphan. They have no choice. They can't choose where they live. But we can choose to make a difference. So when I'm going to challenge you now, 목사님 said that we were going to teach and preach and challenge, so that's what I want to do. When people think about Awake Ministry at Myungsung, what's the first image they have? What do they think? I know you're trying to increase your membership, and I think that's wonderful. But I'm pretty sure that if this congregation, and this congregation is you, and you, and you, if this congregation becomes known for loving your neighbors, for showing mercy and justice, for loving the least of these, the orphans, the widow, the helpless, you'll have so many people here, you'll have to find a bigger room. Next. So I wonder, who will you love this week? Next. This is my challenge to you. I challenge each of you to find someone this week, before next Sunday, not just to invite to church, not to invite to 영어예배, but I want you to find someone who needs a good Samaritan. Find someone that no one else wants to help. The homeless man in the train station. The old lady who was always yelling and aggravating everyone down the street. Someone different from you, not your family, not your friends, but someone different from you, and show them love this week. Next. If you love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself, this week, I know this room will be full, and you will be blessed if you do.